So we're here at the racetrack. We are shooting with the new Canon 90D.
We've inherited a lot of features from Canon's upper end cameras, so let's see what this thing can do.
So as always, guys, we're going to be hanging out in the comments below, answering your questions, so feel free to let us know your thoughts down there. And then, a lot of you have been asking us for these, so here it is. We are going to be releasing our presets that we use for shooting all of these images, as well as our video LUT files, and then help guides. So if you want any help getting started, anywhere from a getting started guide all the way up to a full course, which will be coming really soon for that camera, all that information is down below in the video description. And then obviously you can join us on our Facebook group to get some more information, see other people posting with that camera. And then we have our gear guide, so everything that we would buy for these cameras, lenses, accessories, go check those out down below. I think you'll really enjoy them.
Now when you pick up the 90D, it will feel incredibly similar to the 80D or really any other Canon cameras for the most part. And that's a great thing because I absolutely love the DSLR feel of Canon cameras. Now we have the new item, which is a joystick from Canon's higher end cameras, which makes it way easier to control and move around your autofocus points. And they always do a great job with that. Now Canon has also bumped up the amount of weather sealing, and it does still feel very plasticky, but I mean, you can also add the battery grip to it, which makes it a step up from most other cameras in that range.
So it's all definitely a step in the right direction. I can't say that there's anything really wow-worthy on the external side though, but once you start digging into the menu, things get a whole lot better. I mean, Canon has always been known for its ease of use of cameras, and this is no exception. You throw this camera into auto mode, the menu simplifies completely, you get rid of those intimidating controls, so a really good to use beginner camera. However, my favorite part is you throw it into manual mode and the menu system comes to life and you have all the options, tons of customization, and just everything that I would want as more of an advanced shooter inside the camera, which helps a lot. Honestly, the only thing that I really kind of felt was missing is the inability to change your file names for each camera. It's really not a problem for most people, but if you're shooting with two cameras, it can be a real pain, and I really wish they had included that. So let's talk about the two big upgrades for this camera, and those are probably going to be the autofocus system and the frame rate. So for the autofocus system, because this is a DSLR, you're going to have two completely different autofocus systems depending on if you're using the optical viewfinder or the rear LCD screen in live view. So for the optical viewfinder, you do have Canon's 45-point all-cross type system. This is the same basically from its older cameras. However, it is upgrading a little bit with some new intelligent tracking features. So you do get like face detection inside of that and better tracking. And then you also have a small spot mode, which are nice additions here. Again, nothing legendary, but we are getting a very capable system. I'd say the big limitation here is that the autofocus points are kind of clustered towards the center. That's pretty normal for a DSLR, especially in this price range, but in the age of mirrorless cameras, where you have autofocus points spread all over, or even Canon's live view autofocus system, it can feel a bit limiting to be stuck kind of relying on that center cluster of points for your autofocus area. The good thing here is all you need is a click of a button, and then you're going to enter Canon's live view autofocus mode, which is going to give you all of the benefits of mirrorless cameras, as well as even Canon's own mirrorless cameras like the M6 II they announced today.
One of the newer upgrades you'll see in the Canon 90D is definitely the eye autofocus as well as the face detection. It does get better with this camera, but I do have to say, working a lot with Sony systems, Autofocus system, and seeing this new update from the Canon EOS R, it doesn't necessarily match up to those systems given they are more of the higher end, and this is your APS-C, but it did work well. So I did have the model walk back and forth towards me. She had to be fairly close towards me for the eye autofocus to work, but the face detection worked very well. I had her move from side to side, and again, it did not work as well as the new EOS R update, which I'm really excited about because I do use this a lot. If you have motion in your pictures, you want them to be able to move without worrying about moving your focus point. And I feel like the Canon 90D did well. It doesn't do as well as the other ones, but I'm glad to see this upgrade in this camera. Another new amazing feature about this camera is the frame rate. We are getting up to 10 frames per second, and that is amazing for a DSLR in this price range.
So now let's talk video. And for video, the good news here is that this is probably Canon's best camera below $2,000. Kind of rare for it to be a DSLR, but this is going to be it. And the bad news is that there's still a good amount of stuff that's been left out of this that I kind of hoped would be in it. And for starters, let's get this out of the way. The 90D, just like Canon's EOS RP, does not shoot 24 frames per second. I don't know why. Yes, the Canon 70D and 80D also shoot 24 frames per second, so this has been removed from this camera, and just about every other camera in existence shoots 24 frames per second. Now, if you're shooting your kids on a family vacation, you probably won't care that much, but for everyone else, and that's a huge segment of the market, it does matter, and it's kind of ridiculous that it's not in this camera. You know who you are, and if it's a big deal, this might even be a deal breaker. So now that we have that out of the way, it is 4K, 30 frames per second, but it is 4K, and it does have 1080p up to 60 frames per second, and those of you who have been wanting 120 frames per second for some awesome slow motion, it is kind of here. You can enable it, however, it will come with a small crop, and it will mean that there is no audio in that video file, and then the big limitation is no autofocus in that mode, so pretty limiting. However, I did use it quite a bit, and it did work out for me just fine. Kind of unexpected is we do have some additional crop modes. They came with a nice friendly warning that there might be overheating in there. However, I shot with this mode quite a bit, honestly, and I didn't have any kind of overheating warnings, and it was really hot outside. However, I did notice that in those crop modes, probably the reason for the overheating warning is that in the crop modes, the footage looked a little bit more detailed. So my guess is that Canon is doing some better processing with this, like oversampling or a full sensor readout. And then for the normal full APS-C mode, we're getting something like a pixel binning or a lower quality way of getting to that 4K file. So yes, even if you're shooting 4K, the footage never looked amazing. It was never completely detailed, still better than 1080p, but never looked amazing. But it did get a little bit better when I dropped that into those additional crop modes. Now we do have Canon's amazing dual pixel autofocus system for video, and it works amazingly well. The only limitation I would say is that you can't control the speed of the autofocus system in tracking mode. So only if you go into a single point system do you have that ability. So for all the tracking of the cars moving towards me, I was not able to make the system any faster. And then for the slower portraits where I might want to slow that autofocus system down, you cannot do that. It's in the camera, it just can't be worked in addition with that tracking mode. So kind of a weird thing there. And then also, not surprising, but you don't have high-end video features like Canon's log profiles or zebras or anything like that. Not that unexpected. So I mean, overall, I really enjoyed using the camera. I got some amazing results. It's very capable in so many ways, but Canon is still just trailing the pack when it comes to a lot of the features and holding out on some of those limitations.
So with the 90D, the image quality is really absolutely great for the APS-C camera. We have a 32 megapixel sensor that performed quite well despite all those megapixels, which obviously can give you trouble in low light and troubles with dynamic range. Now the colors and details, exactly what you would expect coming out of a Canon system. Canon always does a great job with this. And we had no issues pushing shadows, which is a huge deal for me. Always shooting in low light is, a huge issue, and I like pushing those shadows. I had no banding issues at all. So in low light, results were again pretty respectable, even with all those megapixels. Up to 1600 ISO, the images looked amazing, with just a hint of grain popping up, of course. At 3200 ISO and again at 6400 ISO, you will see a slight color shift as well as a little noticeable increase in grain. Only at 12,000 ISO did things take a big hit with major color swings. Even then, with a bit of work, you could still getting those pictures look decent. So Canon has definitely produced the best APS-C DSLR non-full frame on the market currently. I dare you guys to say that 5 times fast. Honestly, this camera is powerful in live view. That's one of my favorite things about this camera. And you know what? DSLRs, I love the feel of them. And I think this camera is just what you would expect from Canon, and they did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing crazy to get excited about here, but with a 32 megapixel camera and you have great ergonomics, it's so easy to use and just lightning fast. It just kind of gives a recipe that's really easy to recommend.
Oh, absolutely. Again, thank you guys so much for your support. We're always appreciative of it. If you have any questions, let us know down below and we'll be hanging out there. And again, let us know what you think of the camera. Thanks guys for watching.